Talk with Tyson Bryden. Come on for the ride. We'll take you inside. Non-stop rock talk. It's non-stop rock talk with Tyson Bryden. Come on for the ride. We'll take you inside.
Welcome to another episode of Non-Stop Rock Talk. It gives me great pleasure to welcome back Arthur and radio personality Tim Durling. Hey Tim, how's it going, man?
It's going really good, Tyson. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. It's great to have you back. I mean, we always have a good conversation, and I mean, I didn't write that many notes this time because I know our conversations always go into totally off the notes, so
all over the place,
which is great, which is good. So, but we will start with what we kind of discussed before we did the interview. You have published yet another book. This one is dedicated to Canadian rock band April Wine. There it is, entitled On the Record, the April Wine Album Review. That looks great, by the way. I wish we weren't only audio so people at home could see it because it looks so good.
I'm so used to holding them up.
I know.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I have to thank my buddy Matt Phillips at Go North Design once again. He knocks it out of the park with a fantastic front and back cover design and just the whole layout of the book.
Yeah.
You know, anybody that's got any of my previous books, I like to think that we've got a standard of quality, and this one is right there. This one's actually got kind of an Easter egg for those that haven't seen it if you're just listening. But I will say that if you grew up in Canada and you bought cassettes and you have any sort of, well, especially if you were in April Wine and you bought any of their cassettes that were reissued, you'll enjoy the spine of this book because there's a very distinctive look.
It looks like the tapes.
Yeah, it looks like the old Capitol.
That's cool.
Reissued, and
that looks was awesome.
Yeah, that's one that I really had to convince Matt about that because he said, "Are you sure? It doesn't look like the rest of the." I said, "Trust me, man." So I lent him a couple of my tapes so he could color match. He's like, "Okay, I get it." And
great.
Yeah, it's like an Easter egg. I a few people have mentioned it, but not many. But I love it when people say, "Hey, I was looking at the spine of your book, and it looks familiar." Like, yeah, it should.
How many truck stop tapes did we see that had those spines? I think there was quite a few, right?
The truck stop, these were like legitimate
Capitol
album
records.
Reissues. Yeah, a lot of them were. You would see them in department stores that used to have the racks that were near
like
the front counter. Yeah, like Woolco, like I'm going to get really old and Canadian here, like Byway, Mighty Mart, like just different, places like that. And there would be truck stop tapes among them.
Right.
But these ones were legit. Like these were, I mean, you can find Beach Boys and Beatles and Pink Floyd and, all sorts of artists that were on Capitol. But in Canada, they had a very distinctive, like gray, blue look to them. And the April Wine, I collect their cassettes. And there's just a ton of them that all look the same. So I wanted to honor that.
That's so cool.
on the spine of the book. I did the same thing with my Kansas book because they were an act that was on CBS Sony at one point. So I wanted to have the white background with the red impact font so it looked like the CBS CDs. I'm just a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. I love those. I love those that. I love when people do that and leave those sort of Easter eggs. It had nothing to do with the book itself, but it's just an extra added value.
Yeah, I remember like Atlantic Records on the CDs and the tapes. Mm-hmm. They were white and red as well. And
we did an entire series, my buddy Chris Preston and I, where we went through, because there was a distinctive font that they used we determined it was from 87 to 92.
Yeah.
And they all looked the same, whether it was Rat or Winger or Skid Row or
That's right.
Twisted Sister. Yeah, there was any Atlantic cassettes that came out for a certain period. They had that very distinctive look on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you collect stuff. Whether you know it or not, you remember stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool Easter egg because I wasn't expecting that. And So you didn't do it on the Y&T book. The A&M thing would have been kind of cool too to do, right?
Yeah, but
It wasn't as distinctive.
Hugh Syme designed that album cover, so I wasn't going to mess with that.
Ah, okay, I gotcha. Yeah,
I mean, that was just an honor to have his work grace one of my books. But yeah, and with the Sammy Hagar one, as long as I had lots of red and black, I figured that it looked,
you were good.
Like it should. And yeah, so, but I've got some ideas in mind for some upcoming thing. I like it. It looks, it's just that the color scheme and the font is just made to look very, very specific.
I know, it looks so cool. I love that. I mean, that brings back memories, right?
Yeah. I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping people are, you could have the book for months, right? Then all of a sudden you happen to flip it over and go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I never noticed that before. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So my next question, why April Wine?
Longtime fan, definitely one of my favorite Canadian bands. They're just one of my favorite bands, period. And it's probably about time I did a book on a Canadian band, being a Canadian myself. And April Wine actually have the distinction of being one of the only classic rock bands I can think of that were worldly renowned, or that had records all over the world, that kind of started in the easternmost part of Canada, which is where I'm born and raised. And actually the late Miles Goodwin, April Wine's main songwriter and lead singer and guitar player, was actually born in Woodstock, New Brunswick, as was I.
Oh,
so
wow.
we share a birthplace. Now, the difference is that I grew up there. I grew up in Woodstock. I lived there for the first, 20 odd years of my life. Miles's family did not. They moved on to Waverly, Nova Scotia, which is where he met the Hedmans, and, April Wine was born. But it's a cool little factoid. But I'm just a big fan. It's just, that's a cool little tie-in with, when you read his autobiography, what he's describing places that I've been to, which I can't say that about many rock biographies.
That's true. I didn't know a whole lot about April Wine until recently. So I read a whole thing on their whole history and kind of how the band went along. And it was two brothers as well, right? Am I correct?
Two brothers and a cousin, and they were all named Henman. It was David and Jimmy and Richie. And Miles kind of joined them, although he would end up being the leader, the main songwriter. So yeah, so that's why April Wine's first, few albums are very different sounding than the sound that they would become famous for, especially the first album. First album's very folk rock. It's kind of very eclectic, and it's, for me personally, it's not the easiest of listens, but I know I have one of the things that has come from working on this book, because this is another book where I've got lots of people that are taking part in it. There are people that really enjoy that first album, which is fantastic. I just never met them before. That's
funny. Now, though, they kind of evolved, and did all those guys leave at some point?
Okay. So yeah. So what happened is that you had the three Henmans and Miles on the first record. And then on the second record, I believe it was one of these days, I'm going to get this without looking it up. I think it was David Hedman that left.
Yeah.
And was replaced by Jim Clinch on bass and co-lead vocals. And so there were still two Henmans on the second album on record, which it was released in the US. That was the second April Wine album was actually the first album to be released in the US, and it was just self-titled there, but it's the same album. It's the one that had You Could Have Been a Lady.
Great song.
And Bad Side of the Moon. And it was a fairly big record for them in Canada. And after that album, the other Hedmans left, and then they were replaced by Gary Moffat on guitar and Jerry Mercer on drums. So you're getting closer to the classic April Wine lineup.
Yeah. It's funny that those guys that started the band, and Miles Goodwin joins the band, and they all kind of leave, right? And
well, they my understanding is that there wasn't a lot of bad blood there. They just said that Miles was incredibly driven, and they knew he had what it took to keep going. But the rest of the guys were like, "We're not making any money. I think we're going to do something else, or and." But they said, you must, use the name, keep the name, because we've kind of got a thing going with it, right? Rather than start from scratch. So, yeah, it's interesting how it developed. But yeah, anybody that was only familiar with, their biggest albums, the turn of the 80s, would be very surprised to hear what they sounded like at first.
Yeah, I kind of need to go back and have a listen and hear what the first album
It's quite a
sounds like.
journey. It's quite a sonic journey to go on, really, because they wrote in a number of different styles. And Miles Goodwin himself was extremely varied songwriter. And there's no better example of that than the 1977 album Forever for Now, which was, it says April Wine on it, but it was really intended to be a solo album for him. But at the last minute, the record label said there's more marketability if we put the April Wine name on it. But it's totally all over the place in style. And again, I find it a bit of a hard listen, but there are people that like it. So it's more varied than I think people who've just heard them on the radio would realize.
I think this book is amazing for a lot of people because April Wine's one of those bands that you don't realize the catalog and the amount of songs when you hear them on the radio. And even album covers. I don't know a lot. Like I couldn't, like you couldn't hold it up and go, oh, what album's this? I wouldn't know. April Wine's kind of got that. I don't know why it is, but they're one of those bands that if you're a fan of April Wine, this is the kind of book you want to read because now you can learn about these album covers and see what it's all about and what songs are on what and what goes with what. It's kind of a puzzle that all goes together.
Yeah, and it's very much in the vein of the other books that I've done. It's to educate, hopefully hopefully it's in an entertaining way, but it's here's all the albums. Here's, when they came out, this is what it looks like. Here are the songs on it. Here's who wrote the songs. And, there's a lot of different things. Like this is a band that means different things to different people if they're familiar with them at all. Yeah. Now here in Canada, April Wine is kind of a classic rock institution, I would say. They still get a lot of airplay today and they're still able to tour, even though there are no original members left at this point. And people want to hear those songs, but they're also a band, I think, that once people start listening to them, and I know this has happened with some friends of mine that have taken part in this book, I would get this a lot. Oh, I know this song. Yeah. I know this song. I know this song. I just didn't know they were all April Wine.
I know, it's crazy.
Again, that goes back to that early variety that I was telling you about. But in the U.S., I think people might be surprised to find out that this band had 16 studio albums.
Wow. Because
they really were only popular in the U.S. for about 2 or 3 years. And so there's only about 3, maybe 4 albums that sold any great amount in the U.S. But no, I mean, they were going for a long time before they broke in the States. And then they kept on going even after that popularity faded. Because I've said this many times, it's extremely difficult for Canadian acts to break into the U.S.
Absolutely.
And remain big in the U.S. You can get lucky with an album or a single, but it's really hard to carve out a career. So few people have done it. For every Rush or Bryan Adams or, even like Celine Dion or going back to the Guess Who, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young.
Nickelback.
Yeah, Nickelback. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And then there are lots of, then there are acts like Tragically Hip, who are like rock gods in Canada, but couldn't get arrested in the U.S. except for pockets. You know what I mean? Like they have a cult following in the States, but they're household names in Canada. Kim Mitchell, he was one of the biggest rock stars of the 80s in Canada. I remember, when I was 10 or 11 years old, Platinum Blonde was an enormous band here in Canada, but they were not popular in the U.S. at all. So it's just a very strange Gowan. It was just a very strange thing. But April Wine did manage a gold record and a platinum record in the U.S.
That's amazing.
And they did well as a touring act for a few years, but it didn't last very long. It's really, really tough to get there and stay there. But, like I said, they've got fans all over the world. And, there's never been a book that I know of that's just concentrated on their body of work. And that seems to be what I've been doing. And I enjoy doing it. So to me, it's just like, okay, what band? I think all bands eventually deserve that. Any band that made any kind of marks, it's just like, what can I do to, in some small way, help spread the word about some of these lesser known bands? And that's the thing about April Wine. In Canada, I wouldn't say that they're a lesser known band.
No.
But in the US, they're usually not on the top of people's lists unless you happen to get into them when they were really big at the turn of the 80s and stayed there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's funny because, I mean, they're on tour with Triumph, right? What, the version of April Wine. I mean, Triumph doing their whole reunion tour.
Yep.
So that's...
And I caught that earlier this year.
I was going to ask you. You did go.
And as a matter of fact, that made its way into the book in a I think a wonderful way.
Cool.
Because Miles Goodwin was such an important part of that band. He wasn't just, he was the lead vocalist 99% of the time, did a lot of the lead guitar work, and wrote most of the songs that people, wrote a lot of their, certainly most of their best known songs. So in a lot of ways, he was the sound of April Wine. And when they continued on with a new singer, I was kind of thinking, boy, I don't know about that. But I'm never going to be someone that goes online and spouts off about that, because who cares what I think? Nobody. I'm just another idiot behind a keyboard with an opinion. When you know what they say about opinions, Tyson.
Yeah.
Everybody's got one, right?
Everyone's got one. Yeah.
But to myself, I'd said, I don't know if I want to go see April Wine without Miles Goodwin.
Right.
And I'm so happy that the Triumph tour came to Moncton, which is close to where I live. Because I've been a Triumph fan longer than I've been an April Wine fan. And they broke up and stopped touring before I started going to shows. So I never, ever thought I would see Rick Emmett and Gil Moore in any capacity, right? And I'm such a big fan. And April Wine were opening. And my mind was changed. Mark Parent is the guy that is now the front man. He sings and plays guitar. Does not sound like Miles Goodwin in the least. And I'm kind of glad that they, as opposed to bands that I love, like Journey and Foreigner, that kind of put themselves into a corner where we have to find a singer that sounds like, we need a clone of somebody. So they just simply found someone who could deliver the songs well and learn the guitar parts and play those well. And you know what? People responded. When they opened that show with Ooh What a Night and the bells started going off, the place went nuts. And this is the opening act.
Cool.
So I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. I'm glad, and I'll admit it. And I wrote that in my epilogue. I wrote an epilogue about it because I was already working on this book long before any of this. I knew about any of this happening. I knew they were still touring on their own, but I didn't know about the Triumph reunion. That surprised me. I would have lost a bet on that one, because I figured you're not going to see them back together. It's enough that they're talking again.
I know.
Well,
here we are.
It happened, but April Wine went over extremely well, and it just reinforced that people love these songs and they want to hear them. And I write in the book, like, in return for, one thing about this Triumph tour, what it's done, it's gotten them back out in front of bigger audiences and bigger venues, especially in the US.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they were always able to tour in Canada and, play maybe larger clubs, theaters, things like that as a headliner, or casinos. But this got them in front of arenas again. And I've always said that April Wine delivers arena strength rock, no matter what size venue you're seeing them in. So this was really great. So in return for having a full set, they just crammed hit after hit after hit after hit into their opening set. And then they were done. And then everybody was happy.
What a great opening. That's a perfect opener, right?
There were no deep cuts. Yeah. It was everything you'd expect. It was Ooh What a Night, Enough is Enough, Sign of the Gypsy Queen, Just Between You and Me, I Like to Rock, Roller, just bang, bang, bang. Wow. Just reminding people, hey, by the way, you know these songs? We're the band that does them. And it just, I got so excited. I'm like, now I know how I'm going to end this book.
Yeah.
And it was already in production by this point. I think I saw them at the end of April, but I was like, now I know exactly how this story is going to end, because I really I wasn't going to say anything about it, because, well, one thing, there's no recorded music to talk about, right? Because their last album came out in 2006, and that's probably going to be it. But I was just so glad that, you know what, this band, the music's in good hands with these musicians now.
That's
so
cool.
I would encourage anybody, if they're coming near you, go see them.
So where was that show?
I was in Moncton, New Brunswick.
Cool.
So it's about 3 hours away from where I live. I've seen many a show down there, and don't always get a lot of big shows, but the Maritimes kind of we're on the short end of the stick for that. But when they do come around, I like to go and see them. But there's no way I was going to miss the Triumph show in Moncton.
No,
but yeah,
that show, that DVD from that Triumph show from, what is it, like 87, from the Surveillance tour, I think it was, with Rick Santers. That was done out east, right? Was that in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, that's from Halifax. Yeah,
that's from Halifax.
I think that was a Sport of Kings tour.
It was a Sport of Kings. Okay.
Yeah, that was done at the Halifax Metro Center.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would have been 12 or 12. I wasn't going. I didn't have an older brother.
Yeah,
and I didn't have any older cousins that lived handy enough that could have taken me to shows. I would have loved to, but I didn't start going to shows till I was 18. But yeah, that's where that was taken. So yeah, Halifax is probably 6 hours, maybe 7 hours away from me. But I've been to Halifax a few times. Yeah, as a matter of fact, next month, pretty excited. I'm going there to see Deep Purple in Kansas.
Oh, no way! So is Steve Morse doing double duty?
Steve Morse isn't in either of those bands.
He's in neither. I thought he wasn't in Deep Purple. Really?
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah, he was only in Kansas for a couple albums at the end of the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's been in the last 4 or 5 years he left Deep Purple, and they got a great new guitar player named Simon McBride. They just put out a new album. Their last 2 albums have been really, really good. And I'm excited to see Deep Purple, but I mean, obviously I wrote a book on Kansas. They're one of my favorite bands. So I'm really excited to see them. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's cool. That's amazing. Now this is a question that I have to ask, because I always ask this on how many 8 tracks of April Wine do you own?
My short answer would be all of them, which is to say, all of the April Wine albums that I am 100% sure came out on 8 tracks. So that would be, I'm looking up at them right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, wait. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Wow.
Technically 14. I've got 2 copies of the First Glance album. I've got a US and a Canadian one because they came out with different covers.
That's cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. So from the first album in 71 through Power Play in 1982, I think that's as far as they went.
Wow. Now, did April Wine not open up for Def Leppard on the Adrenalize tour?
So there were some shows that they were like package or festival shows, because they did play a show here in New Brunswick. I did not get to see that one. It was in the summer of 1993. I would have liked to have gone. And it was Def Leppard were the headliner. April Wine were there. Meatloaf was there. Svengali was there, and Ugly Kid Joe was there.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I think I don't think that they didn't open for them across Canada, but they did play shows with them.
They did
on like this festival, this like summer festival thing.
Yeah, I think they did a show here as well. I'm thinking, I don't know if it was Molson Park or I can't remember.
That sounds right, because this was an outdoor. It was Parley Beach, so it was an outdoor.
Yeah, okay.
It was an outdoor concert. I talked to a lot of people that saw them, and it's really interesting because at that point, April Wine had just kind of come back,
right,
after quite a long hiatus, but an 8-year hiatus. They put out a rocking album called Attitude.
I remember that. Killer cover too. Cool cover.
I hadn't quite got into the band at that point. It was later that year that a friend of mine lent me that CD, and I was convinced to go back and check them out. And it was really interesting because, I mean, Meatloaf, I think Bad out of Hell 2 hadn't come out yet.
Oh, it hadn't.
Because I remember thinking, I don't think so. I remember thinking, boy, that's weird. Nobody's heard from him for a while, but I mean, he was just about to make a big comeback. And then, Ugly Kid Joe, that was a sort of end of they had a little bit of a run.
They had a little bit of a run.
Same thing with Svengali.
Yeah. But
they did do some shows with Def Leppard, which, that would be a very compatible, because it's melodic rock,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was a funny time, like going in from and this gets talked about a lot, the 90s, the early 90s going into the mid 90s, because Ugly Kid Joe kind of came at the end. And, and for them to sustain, they had to go heavier kind of thing, because you're doing I Hate Everything About You and Won't You Be My Neighbor, but they kind of had to kind of change their style. It was it was so weird, right?
They were almost a novelty, I think, to people.
I agree with you.
And I think people are like, this is funny. but you can't build a career out of that.
No.
And yeah, they came at the very, very tail end of bands that had guitar solos and were essentially a hard rock band, right?
Exactly.
So they did have that kind of comedy thing going, even though that wasn't exactly what they sounded like, but that's what they became known for, this sort of goofy,
Yeah, I Hate Everything About You. And then on the album they put, remember Pat from Saturday Night Live?
Oh, yeah,
you guys are the guys on the beats that hate everything. They put that on.
Then they, then they at the same time, like every other band, they had a big hit with a ballad. They covered Cats in the Cradle,
right?
And had a pretty big hit with it, right? And with April Wine, I think that if they'd put that Attitude record out in 90 or 91, it would have done better. Because, of course, we had grunge and alternative coming in, and anything upbeat and positive just wasn't. Yeah,
it was done.
Although Attitude did go gold in Canada, which was pretty good achievement. Yeah. And it actually had some radio action in the States, specifically the song That's Love, which is pretty good for an independent album in the States to do that well as an import. It's just a shame that they weren't able to secure a major label deal, because they kind of became for many, many years, it was really a Canadian only thing. They just crisscrossed Canada. I've seen April Wine more than any other band. I've seen them 6 times, and that's nothing. Because if you talk to most people that like April Wine, it's like I saw them 6 times on one tour, because they were just always coming around.
Yeah, you mentioned about Canadian bands that had semi-success in the States. Helix is another one which kind of were there, and then
Helix
they died, right? It died, their success.
Helix were a great hard rock band. They didn't have, I don't know why they didn't click in the States, because it seems to me that when you had bands like Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister,
they fit right in.
And I think they were better than either of those bands. They had great songs. Brian Vollmer was a great singer. Yeah. They had catchy songs. But they didn't even have a gold record in the States. They really didn't, they got on some big tours, but April Wine did have Harder, Faster that came out in 79 as a gold record in the US. And then of course, The Nature of the Beast in 81 is a platinum record in the US. I just think there should have been at least a couple more.
Yeah. So in terms of their catalog, if you had to choose one album, which one is your favorite?
That's a tough one, because there's 2 that immediately spring to mind. Most fans, I think, will tell you Harder, Faster. That's got I Like to Rock. It's got Say Hello. It's got their cover of 21st Century Schizoid Man. It's a really, really good album. A lot of, older fans than that will probably say Stand Back from 75. That one has Ooh, What a Night. It's got Tonight is a Wonderful Time to Fall in Love. I Wouldn't Want to Lose Your Love. That was a big album for them. That was a really big album for them. I think that was like a double platinum album within its first year. Wow. I really like the Attitude album. That's when I got on board, and it's kind of, and I think most people can relate to this, it's kind of hard to you can't really substitute that feeling of when you first get into a band. Yeah. What was current. And for me, it was the Attitude record. So, you know what? Just because I think more people need to hear it, I'm going to go with the Attitude record from 93. I think if you listen to that and you don't like it, then you're probably not going to be an April Wine fan.
Oh, that's good to know. Now, changing to Kiss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yesterday, someone posted on Facebook a 8-track of Animalize that they were selling for $400.
I saw that.
Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that?
I do.
Wow.
And I've told people, I shared that with a few of my friends. I said, you know what? It's not going to get any cheaper.
Right. No.
Because there probably aren't that many of them, even though that was a platinum album. How many of those million would be on 8-track? Not very many.
And
that goes to my whole thing about these record club only 8-tracks, which is what that is. That would never have come out in a retail store.
And that's what it said.
Yeah. And that's the last Kiss album that's known to officially exist on 8-track. People have done homemade ones, but this is the last one released by a record label, right? Even though it was strictly through Columbia House. Yeah, I do have it. Didn't cost me quite that much, but it wasn't cheap. And these ones aren't. It's how bad you want them, right? Because they aren't making any more of them.
No,
they're not going to be reissued.
And I totally get it. I paid close to $400 or $500 for a Roxy Blue on vinyl.
Yeah. See, that's the same type of thing. It's the rarity, right?
Yeah.
It might be easy to find the CD, But if you're looking for other formats, it might, it's not that easy. So yeah, in the case of Kiss, what I need are Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up. Wow. So I've got everything else.
So
even the originals.
Wow. So when they did Creatures, they didn't do the second version of Creatures where they on 8-track.
Here's what I know. The only version of Creatures of the Night I've ever seen on 8-track is a US polygram retail version.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why there wouldn't be a Columbia House version or an RCA Music Service version.
Yeah.
Because usually there are. I know that wasn't a big album initially. It took a long time to go gold.
It's crazy.
But the only one I've ever seen is the retail one, and that would have been the last retail one.
So it's got the original cover on it.
The original cover, and you can see it on Discogs. It's just it's beautiful. That's my favorite Kiss album too.
Mine too.
I love that cover, right?
Yeah.
But if you know anything about even the cassettes that came out in the US that were on Polygram, they've got like a beige case, and that's what the 8-tracks look like too. They've got that same sort of beige casing to them.
Yeah.
Now, Lick It Up, as far as I know, only exists as a Columbia House 8-track, and it's even more rare than Animalize. You will see Animalize pop up maybe once every 2 years, because that was a bigger album, right? Lick It Up wasn't as big, took a long time to go platinum. Now, I saw Lick It Up come up on eBay once, and it was not a buy it now, and the bids were already at like $600.
Wow. See, I like...
So that's even more scarce than Animalize.
That's crazy. I like Animalize better than Lick It Up, though.
Yeah. But in dollars and cents, you can kind of see why it was the record clubs would have pressed a few more of those, because it was a bigger album. Heavens on Fire got more airplay than Lick It Up did.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. Now, something that I write about in my 8-track book on Spooled, we may have talked about this before, because I have a chapter in that book about some what ifs.
Yes.
And
we
one of the what ifs,
we can but let's talk about it again.
Yeah. Well, one of the what ifs for me is Asylum.
Right.
Because I always look at what other bands also had 8-tracks in 85.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about anything in common musically, but one of the rarest 8-tracks in my collection that I own now is Rush's Power Windows album from 1985, which is the last one of their albums to come on 8-track. For many years, I thought it was Grace Under Pressure, but it turns out it's Power Windows. So Power Windows came out in the fall of 85, and in the US, it would have come out on Mercury Records, as did Asylum.
Right.
So why didn't Asylum come out? Because they're coming off Animalize, which was a platinum record for them. It was really a comeback for them.
Yeah.
So why doesn't Animalize also exist? I don't know. I can't say definitively that it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm saying, as far as all of my research, everything that I've looked at, all of the sites I've been on, and I'm not talking about just going on Discogs, I'm just talking about combing the internet, right?
Yeah.
As far as I know, that does not exist.
It doesn't exist.
But of course, there is the possibility that it does. And if it does, then that also opens up the possibility that maybe that non-makeup cover does as well, because that came out in 85.
85, yeah.
So, but I just don't think so.
That's why I asked that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I don't think so is because 1984 seemed to be the peak of the amount of 8-tracks they were still pumping out, because they started to really, really go down. By the time you get to 1987, 1988, there's like very, very few, and really nothing much for heavy rock. So
I wonder what their numbers looked like then.
But that again, that's one of my regrets. I would have loved to have talked to someone that worked at one of the record clubs.
We discussed that before, that it would be amazing.
And said, but the closest that I came was there's a friend of mine named Ernesto who has I'm trying to think if I got this right. It was a friend of his whose mother worked at Columbia House in the 80s. She does not speak English, so we'd need like a Spanish translator, and she wasn't in very good health. So I didn't want to bother this person that I barely know.
Yeah.
That's the closest. And for all I know, this person might have just worked in a factory, just putting labels on tapes, and would have had nothing to do with, the select, which albums are coming out, which ones aren't. Because it is a really weird thing. going back to April Wine, like I said, the last one I know of their albums is Power Play from 1982, which means they technically don't have any RCOs because there are none that would have come out after that. So everything that came out in retail as well. However, having said that, because of some other 8-tracks that exist, the next album after that came out in early 1984. It was called Animal Grace. That could very well exist as a Canadian Columbia House 8-track because Columbia House they stopped in 84, whereas the U.S. branch of Columbia House stopped in 88. So Animal Grace could exist in Canada. It could also exist as a U.S. Columbia House or a U.S. RCA music service. Now, it wasn't a successful album, but you don't know that going in. So it could just be a policy if an album comes out on a major label, it's going to come out on X format, right? So I don't think it did, but there is a possibility that it did.
The whole Columbia House thing, as I'm thinking about it, listening to you talk about Columbia House, when they closed, I wonder what happened to everything. Like,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like the backlog of
unsold. And where did they keep it?
I don't. That's a really good question. And with these 8-tracks, I wonder, like, especially once you get into 86, 87, and 88, which is when they finally shut it down for good. I wonder if there are any selections that they offered in the magazines and like the monthly magazine, or if there were ads in regular magazines on 8-track that they never actually manufactured because nobody bought them.
Right.
So I don't think you'd find a big, I think we're talking small runs of these.
Yeah.
There could be a ton of records, cassettes, CDs. I don't think there's a lot of 8-tracks. And if there are, they're probably like the Statler Brothers or something. You know what I mean? Like they're later 80s ones.
I would love to see someone do a documentary on Columbia House.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and go deep. Like go really deep.
Absolutely. Or write a book.
To this day, I still talk to people that had no idea that you could get some of these later albums on 8-track.
I didn't know that until I met you.
And people that know a lot about music like yourself. So it's just this underground thing. And the only reason I know about it is because I was fascinated enough to always make that one of my first searches whenever I'd get on the internet in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And
another question is, everything that the music that they were using to press from, what happened to it all? Where did it go? Yeah,
because there were, this is one thing I have learned over the years is that there are different masters for different formats. You don't use the vinyl master to make cassettes or CDs or 8-tracks. They each had their own master reels or whatever, however that worked, the master duplicator or whatever. Yeah. I don't, especially with 8-tracks where you had to chop up the order of the songs and sometimes cut the songs in half, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, all of that stuff, I mean, they had to have been doing it. So where did it go?
Yeah, where did it go? Like, did somebody end up with it? Did it get trashed? I hope it didn't get trashed.
Yeah, is it like the Atari games? Is it in a landfill somewhere, right? I mean, that would be, something that I would love to come across, like an estate sale, where somebody, they've had a relative's things in their attic for decades, right? And they have no idea. And there's all of these unopened 8-tracks.
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. A keyboard player buddy of mine came to a gig last week, and he came up to me and he's like, well, my mom and my parents, we just sold their house and all my vinyl was still there. And I knew what he had, like I had an idea of what he had. And it was, a lot of it's all that, you remember the shrapnel guitar stuff? Like Marty Friedman.
Oh, yeah.
Marty Friedman, Richie Kotzen.
Yeah,
so he's
Cacophony,
Yeah, there's a Cacophony record in
Racer
there.
X.
Yeah, he had I already have those, but he had the Racer X. And so he sent me a list of it, and I was like, oh, so there's like 20, I think something like 20 albums that he had that I didn't have. So I said, well, we'll discuss what it's going to cost me to buy these from you, because I want to make sure that I give you the right amount for them. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, these are worth money. Like these are to me.
Yeah, these are not. You don't see these at record fairs.
No.
These do not come up.
I did find Racer X at a record show. The two albums. I did.
But I bet they were more expensive than a lot of the records that were there.
They were.
Yeah.
But I was like, I have to pick these up.
Yeah.
Because of what they were. But I mean, and then he says, well, he sends me a picture. He's like, I have this dual turntable. Like from when I was from the 80s. Is like, do you want it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, like this is, it's like, this is like finding grail stuff, like
it's so much fun when something like that happens. But I know for me, like any of that, more the heavier stuff, because I remember, and of course now I wish I'd bought it, but I remember being at the Record Expo a couple of years ago, and there was a Fates Warning record, and I never see their stuff on vinyl.
No, I've never seen it.
I think it was the second record, The Spectre Within. It was $80. It was a Canadian Bonsai Records version. And I thought about it, and I thought, I'm not even done looking yet. I'll spend, of course, now I wish I'd have bit the bullet and bought it. But
no doubt.
Yeah, you just don't, there's just, in a day and age where you're like, I'll just go on eBay and find. Not everything's.
No.
There are still some things that are just scarce.
Yeah. And it's funny, when I went to that record show that I was referring to where I found those Racer X, I think I probably bought 10 albums. I found the Spellbound by Tigers of Pantang with John Sykes on it.
Yeah.
Y&T Open Fire on vinyl. Those Racer X albums. I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff. I was just like, I was in heaven. I was just like, oh, I want this. I mean, I think I dropped $400 or $500 that day.
But you could turn around if you were that way inclined. You could turn around and flip those. You'd make it back. It's just finding the right. It's worth X amount of money. Yeah, but to who? Right. Exactly. That's like these 8 tracks. It's like, what am I going to do with these? I don't know. I'll never get back what I paid for them ever.
No, but to you, they mean something.
Because for every one that I found for $1, it's just to have them. I can't explain it. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about and unspool. Why do we collect? Whatever it is. It doesn't have to be. It can be anything. Something drives us to want to collect and get all of something. Those of us that do, there's just something in us that there's a satisfaction when you complete a set of something.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sometimes it's endless because you're like, okay, well, what do I move on to now when it comes to records for me, right?
The thing is with the 8 tracks, I mean, somebody asked me this the other day, how many do you need? How many that you want? I said, well, the truth of the matter is there's probably less than 50 titles that I would like to find. And I would say 35 to 40 of those I'll never have. Right. Because they will be ones that are just so super scarce, like the first Bon Jovi album, which does exist as a Columbia House 8-track.
I would love to see that.
I mean, well, you can see a picture of it on Discogs, but I mean, it's crazy. It's like this, and that's what fascinates me about them. They shouldn't exist. There should be no crossover between certain bands and certain formats, but there was about 3 or 4 years. So,
it's the same with vinyl, though. When you think you think of in the 90s that Europe was still pressing these. That's where this Roxy Blue album came from.
Yep.
And finding that stuff is just I mean, XYZ Hungry, their second album is on vinyl, but it's expensive because it was pressed in Europe.
Yeah, and like over there, it wasn't any more money than buying a cassette or a CD because it was still standard practice to put them out. But to import them is, like when the last record fair that I went to, I found it. Now it's not an original. There is an original, but it's a music on vinyl reissue of Cinderella Still Climbing. I had to have
I have that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds they did a good job with it.
Yeah, and the packaging looks good. It's just, I like that. It is very similar. There's always a cutoff. And it's the same thing with cassettes, oddly enough, in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. I know some new albums come on cassette now, but I'm talking about the early 2000s because in North America, 2000, 2001, that was about the end
The cutoff.
of
Right.
seeing cassettes in stores.
Yeah.
But territories, for some reason, like Thailand
Still
and
did
Malaysia and Indonesia, because I've got like Poison. You know, Poison did a covers album called
cassettes.
Poisoned,
Yep. Poisoned. Yep.
2007. I have
Yep.
that on cassette.
Do you really? I think I
Yeah.
remember that coming out on cassette. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
I've
ordered
got
that
that.
off their website, the CD.
Oh, okay. And I've got the 20 Years of Rock that came out in 2006. I've got that on cassette. Power to the
cool.
People on cassette. I've got Dream
That's
Theater
cool.
Octavarium on cassette. I've got the first two Darkness albums on cassette. So there are a few, and then there are a few of those that are kind of on my, my want list, like Def Leppard X, Metallica Saint Anger. Like there's just a few of them that like that because they.
Yeah.
So every format had a cutoff, but it seemed like they had the cutoff wasn't the same all over the world.
Yeah.
Either they quit retail, but if you were in a record club, you still had a few more years, or if you were in a different territory. It's really interesting how there are a lot of parallels. So the differences, of course, is that it's always been cool to collect vinyl.
Yeah.
Cassettes are kind of cool to collect.
They totally
there's
are.
a lot of nostalgia.
100%.
8-tracks will never be cool. They're never being anything about them. Doesn't matter how good the album is. It's
But
still
the
an
thing
8-track.
is, though, Tim, you say that, and like they're so hard. There's some that are it's so hard to find.
Well, it's the wow factor, right? It's like, I cannot believe that this album exists in this arcane format that I thought was dead and gone long before this album came out. It's fascinating to me, and it always will be.
That's amazing. Now, I'm going to change the subject a little. We're going back to Kiss. They're finally releasing the 76 Anaheim show
Yeah.
on vinyl and CD.
Yep.
Have you ever heard that show?
No, I believe it or not, I'm not a huge bootleg guy.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I know that there are certain shows. There's certain shows that I would love to see a really good job done. Like Sydney 1980.
Yeah. Like Eric Carr's first tour, right?
If a Palladium show exists in its entirety, I'd love to hear that. Like I loved it when they finally put out that one from San Antonio from the Asylum tour, because for years and years all we ever heard was there's nothing from the Asylum tour, which that never made sense to me. I'm like, this is 1985.
I know.
Like there's got to be something.
The funny thing with Kiss is the stuff you think doesn't exist, it does.
Yeah.
Like that Mark St. John album. Like I bought that.
The Poughkeepsie show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that too. Yeah, that was. I mean, I might not listen to it that much, but
I don't either. But
I
it's
want to
cool.
have it.
I feel the same. I don't have the Asylum one though. I couldn't find it.
So this is what I did with the Asylum one, because for some reason they did not release it on CD in North America, and I remember thinking that is so dumb.
I know.
Just put it out on vinyl.
They put it on vinyl, and I couldn't find it for the life of me.
I ordered the CD from CD Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get it.
Yeah. No, and it came, no problem. So I love the Japanese record labels because they just do whatever they want.
I know.
Like for example, this is Kiss related. Earlier this year, Bryan Adams put out a new album called Tough Town.
Right.
And I got the Japanese CD because the Japanese CD has 2 bonus tracks, and they are War Machine and Rock and Roll Hell.
I've heard those, and they are
which
so
he put
cool.
out as a standalone alone single, but I wanted to have them on CD. So
I didn't know they were on that CD. That is, and they sound. I was so surprised how great they sounded.
Man. That was the fulfillment. Like, because I remember when I first got into Kiss, and I ended up loving Creatures of the Night so much. I love the fact that 2 of their heaviest songs ever were co-written by Bryan Adams.
Yeah.
And I used to think it would be so cool if he did versions of these, and I'd be like, that will never happen. But it did. Yeah. And they sound really good.
They're so great.
And that's what I'm like, I'd like to hear him do a whole album like that.
I know.
Heavy stuff like that.
And like even his version on the Reckless of Teacher is so good. And that Crocus song.
That Reckless reissue is one of my favorite reissues ever. I love Let Me Down Easy. I think that is such a great song. I love the song Reckless, which Loverboy turned into Dangerous.
Which is a great song.
There are 7 songs.
I know.
And 5 of them were recorded by other artists because there was what a roll they were on back then. I mean, that's almost an album's worth of material.
I know,
right
it's
there.
crazy, right? Like, I'd like to see him do, like you said, do a whole album of all those. Yeah, put it all together.
You know, there's one song that he and Jim Vallance wrote. I would love to hear him do, and that's the song "Don't Let Him Know" that Prism did.
Right.
I love that song, but I'd love to hear him do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any demos of it, but that's one I've always wanted to hear his version.
There's got to be
a
demo of it in an archive somewhere.
But I'd love to hear him do a good, I don't mean like a live thing. I mean just like a good studio recording of like When the Night Comes that Joe Cocker did. Love to hear him do that.
See, I don't know that one.
Oh, you'd know it if you heard it. It was a pretty big hit in the turn of the 90s. Yeah. Yeah. That's what he co-wrote that with Jim Vallance. But yeah, the Teacher, when I heard the demo of that, I'm like, well, the guys in 38 Special, obviously they just listened to the demo and learned it.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar.
It's very, very similar. And what was the Crocus song? I can't remember.
Boys Night Out. Yes. Yeah.
That's right, which is on the Blitz.
But Play to Win's a good song. What was the other one?
I'm going to have to break that out.
Draw the Line. Draw the Line was done. Ted Nugent did that on his Penetrator album, the one that Brian Howe for Bad Company sang on.
That's right.
But it was also on Paul Dean's first solo album.
What was that? Pile Driver? No. What was that album called?
Hardcore.
Yeah, that's
right. It had Sword and Stone, which is a Kiss song, essentially.
Which Bonfire did on the Shocker soundtrack.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
But Draw the Line's good song, and that's on there. And what else was on that? But yeah, Let Me Down Easy. I'm like, how did he? This could have been a hit.
It's so funny though. But I mean, Reckless from front to back on its own. What? I mean, would you add another song?
Exactly. Yeah. What would you? Yeah, I know. And then around that same period, he had the song Diana, which is a fantastic song, but
great song.
For obvious reasons, he doesn't like to. There is a CD. There's a foreign CD I'm going to have to get if I'm going to get that song on CD. It's called. I think it's from Europe. It's called Hits on Fire. The first, it's 2 CDs. The first CD is just the Into the Fire album.
Yeah.
The second CD is just a bunch of random songs of Diana.
Diana's on. I remember the tape.
Yeah, I still have that
mini,
tape.
It was like an mini EP thing, right?
It was like a maxi single.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great song.
Amazing song. I remember. Yeah. But the thing was, it was on the radio.
I remember hearing it on the radio. I'll tell you the first place I had that song, I don't have it anymore, but boy, when I was, I think 10 or 11 for Christmas one year, I got A&M put out these twin tapes where they'd have an album on each side.
That's cool.
Yeah. They did it with like the Police and Styx and Nazareth and Supertramp, but I got one that had You Want It, You Got It and Cuts Like a Knife. So I had both of those albums on one tape, but Diana was on the end of one of those sides.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of his career. That song,
yeah,
I don't even think you can find it on streaming.
Probably not. I don't think it's been taken the wrong way. It's just a fun little.
It's a good song, and that's just it. I mean, a good song needs to be heard. Especially for people like fans, right?
Yeah,
you want,
and it would have fit right in. It was obviously recorded for the Reckless album because it sounds just like it, right?
Yeah,
but yeah, that's one of my favorite reissues is the Reckless reissue because of all those gems of songs on there. Yeah. Like I like the Roger Daltrey version of Let Me Down Easy that Brian's also on, but the original version I just think is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean him and Jim Vallance were just such great writers.
They were in such a role, yeah, and he also. Not with Jim, but he also co-wrote the song Down on Your Knees from Killers, which is a great song.
Really?
There's another one I'd like to hear him do. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
What a guy. I mean, you think about Bryan Adams, you think of him as this guy, this Canadian singer, but I think a lot of people don't put him in that category of realizing how great of a songwriter him and Jim Vallance, they really
how
were.
Many people have recorded his songs. I mean, I heard someone send it to me, and I'm not a fan of the whole death metal, doom metal, vocal style at all, but someone, I think the band's called 6 Feet Under.
Okay, I know that band. Yep.
It's really, really, really heavy.
Yes.
But they do a version of War Machine.
Really?
Yeah. Now, it's like, like that's what the vocals sound like.
Yeah.
But musically, it's really good. It's tuned way down.
Yeah.
But it's musically, it's really good. I like it. And I'm like, this is co-written by Bryan Adams. It's like the
And
heaviest
6
thing I've
Feet
ever
Under's
heard.
doing it.
Yeah,
But even when Gene did it, it was like it had a.
Oh, it was a heavy Kiss song. Yeah,
It was a
absolutely.
totally
And it was
heavy Kiss.
recorded heavy. I love the Creatures of the Night album so much. I think
so
that's
do
one
I.
of the reasons why I've always been so enchanted with finding all the different versions of it. Like when I first got into Kiss, it was in the early 90s.
I
You
remember
could
you
not find
saying that.
Yeah, you could not find the original cover. All you could find was that stupid non-makeup
Bruce
cover.
Kulick one, which is I have a copy of that
Makes
on
no
vinyl,
sense at all.
and it's got a couple remixes on it, like remixed versions. And
But that's the only version, but so it was a big deal finding the originals. But that, again, as collectors, it drives us, right? We're always something like that. All of a sudden you're scanning. You're like Predator all of a sudden, right?
I know. I mean, hence I have 7 versions of Creatures on vinyl. 7 different, and I've said this before on the show, 7 versions because, I have a version from Germany with the different, just because it has a different spelling of Kiss.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got the funny looking S's. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they couldn't use the
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I bought, I believe it was my Resurrection copy. I don't know if I told you this. My Destroyer Resurrection.
Right.
And I ordered it on Amazon, and it was a German pressing, and it had the S's are the same way, which I was like, I didn't realize it at first, and then I picked it up one day. I was like, hey, wait a second, this is the German pressing.
Kind of weird. That's the version that you'd get off Amazon, but
right, exactly. It was very bizarre. Now, a couple, and I don't know if we've talked about these before. Some more 8-tracks that I was kind of thinking about.
Okay.
80s stuff and 80s hard rock. Have you ever seen Rough Cut on 8-track?
No.
Black and Blue. I don't know if we discussed that before.
No.
Keel?
No.
No. Now Ozzy stuff is Bark at the Moon.
Bark at the Moon is the last one.
It's the last one. So the Ultimate Sin.
But again, especially where Ozzy was on CBS. See, Columbia House was a division of CBS Records.
Yeah.
So it seems to me it would have been even easier to put out, I mean, for that matter, maybe even No Rest for the Wicked, but I don't think so. I think Bark at the Moon seems to be the consensus is that's the last one.
Right. Now, was Metal Health on 8?
Mental Health and Condition Critical.
But QR3 wasn't.
No.
Wow. Look what the Cat dragged in.
No, although it could. And the reason why it could is because it was on Enigma initially, right?
Right.
Stripers to Hell with the Devil
is on 8-track.
Was put out on 8-track by Columbia House. Wow. And they were on Enigma.
Right.
So
Soldiers Under Command on 8-track?
The only one I know of is To Hell with the Devil.
Right. Which was their most popular.
Even though I know they had 2 or 3 before that, but that's the other thing that's weird. It's like Rat.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that.
And Invasion of Your Privacy exists on 8-track through.
We talked about that before, but Out of the Cellar doesn't.
But
right?
Out of the Cellar doesn't seem to. And there don't seem to be any Twisted Sister ones. Well, Rat and Twisted Sister came up around the same time. They were both on Atlantic Records.
We talked about that.
And they were both about equal popularity, right?
Yeah.
The only Motley Crue one seems to be Shot at the Devil.
I think it would be so cool if there was a Too Fast for Love Leather Records version on 8-track.
I think all there ever was of that was a vinyl version.
Yeah, I don't even think it was on cassette.
But again, I'm really surprised that Theater of Pain wasn't it, because that was a bigger album than it was a more pop album, right? Because of the singles on it. But yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I know you asked me about Autograph. As far as I know, it's just that's the stuff. Not even Sign In Please, which doesn't make any sense either.
It makes no sense.
Crocus, this is what's weird. Crocus goes all the way up to the
Blitz or past that?
Beyond.
Change of Address?
Change of Address, and I think maybe even Alive and Screaming.
Wow.
Maybe Arista Records. Maybe their policy was just to, I don't know.
Yeah.
But and I'm trying to think of what other
What about Tesla? Mechanical Resonance? No.
Geffen was one of those. They didn't seem to stick with it. Although, one of the My Holy Grails is Aerosmith Done with Mirrors.
And it does exist.
Is the last Aerosmith one. Yeah, that does exist. Doesn't seem to exist. There don't seem to be any past that. But again, like I always said, why it would be real easy for them to have done like Classics Live 1 and 2 and then Gems because they were all CBS.
Right.
But by the time you get around to 1987, there really wasn't any hard rock.
Right.
I have 5 8-tracks from 1987. So I've got Bryan Adams' Into the Fire, Fleetwood Mac, Tango in the Night, Heart, Bad Animals, REO Speedwagon, what's it called? Life as We Know It. And then the Sammy Hagar, it was originally
87?
self-titled, but I Never Said Goodbye, the one with Give to Live and Eagles Fly.
Eagles Fly, yeah.
That's the closest to a hard rock album I have in 87. By that time, you just weren't seeing, they weren't putting those. So there's no, none of, like Whitesnake, for example, the newest Whitesnake I've seen. No, I've got Snakebite, Trouble, Love Hunter, Ready and Willing, Live in the Heart of the City. I've never seen any others. I've never seen
Come
any
and Get It wasn't.
Come and Get It might exist. Right. Like in 1981, it was still standard, but I have never seen it. And it took me a long time to find all of those ones. Those are really scarce, right?
Now, the Snakebite version, is it the original white cover?
Well,
like the
hang
original?
on a second.
Or not white cover. I can't
That's
remember.
one that I can reach.
I'm curious to see that.
Yeah. This is in a U.S. edition on United Artists Records. Here's what it looks like.
Okay.
And it's written as if it's by David Coverdale.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. How many songs is like Come On it? And
yeah, it's got 8 songs on it. So it's in the North American version. So it's like that EP plus it's, I think, side 2 of what is North Winds, his second solo album.
Yeah, that's an interesting album because you can find the original, like that photo that's on the cover of that. The original one is like a collection of a bunch of different bigger photos.
Yeah, and Trouble has different photos too.
Yeah, like, Trouble's got 2 different covers.
Yeah, I've got the one I've got is the regular, the black one, but I have seen the white one too.
I have a CD from Japan of a reissue of Trouble with the white cover with the drawn snake on it.
Yeah,
which is the one I prefer.
Mine's just the I guess you could call it the standard one, but like Deep Purple, for example, Perfect Strangers. That's the last one I know of theirs.
Wow.
House of Blue Light doesn't seem to exist.
House of Blue Light's not on.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've got Europe, The Final Countdown, but that's the only one of theirs.
So Wings of Tomorrow is not available?
I wouldn't expect the first one to be on a track, but Wings of Tomorrow, I suppose, could have been. But and then Out of This World could have been too, because like I've got Journey's Greatest Hits. That's one of the very last ones that came out, and that's on CBS. So Out of This World came out earlier than that, but
that's right. It came out around the same time as Bon Jovi, New Jersey, and around
that's right, August, period. September '88. And again with Bon Jovi, only their first one seems to exist. Why not 7800 or Slippery?
Which is hard to believe.
Yeah, it's just. I don't know. Dokken, Under Lock and Key. That's the only one of theirs.
So No Tooth and Nail, no
breaking the chains. Yeah.
What about Wasp?
No Wasp.
Nothing.
No. As far as heavier bands, I know 3 that are constantly in demand, and they're not even record club only. They're retail, but the first 3 Iron Maiden.
Really? Great White?
This U.S. version of this Great White, there doesn't seem to be any.
Wow.
I know that Except Balls to the Wall exists.
Yeah. No Metal Heart, though.
No Metal Heart. Scorpions actually go all the way up to Worldwide Live.
Wow. That's kind of cool. So Blackout. Love It First Sting.
Blackout would have come out as a retail.
Right. And so would Animal Magnetism, too, I would assume, because that was before Blackout.
So then you get Love It First Sting, but there's also an RCA, like Best of Volume 2 from 84 or 85. That exists on 8-track, too.
Yeah. Wow.
Let me see. Like, there's other ones, there's always possibilities, like Alice Cooper, for example. As far as I know, Special Forces from 1981 is the last one that came out on 8-track, but because there is a few that came out at MCA, like I've got Kansas Power, Boston Third Stage. I suppose Constrictor might exist, but I've never seen it, right?
Yeah.
The only other thing I've got for Alice Cooper is that Live at the AstroTurf, which is really, really rare, but that came out just a few years ago. That's one of my prized possessions too. But No Y&T except for the first two Yesterday and Today albums.
I remember you saying that. Yep.
Yeah.
What about Hanoi
You know,
Rocks?
No. Not that I know of. You ever heard the band Zebra?
Yep. Yep.
Their first album exists on 8-track.
Is that the one with the zebra pond, like the chest
No,
piece?
that's No Telling Lies. That's the second one. The first one just got the three band members' faces. It's a black and white cover. But that one exists on 8-track.
Vandenberg?
One of my prized possessions.
Maybe we talked about that before. I think
I didn't have it, I don't think, but I've got the first album.
Oh,
but Heading for a Storm exists too.
So you have...
I've got the first Vandenberg album with the blue cover and the logo on it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's a prized possession of mine. It's just out of my reach.
Wow. That's cool.
I'm racking my brain trying to think of other obscure hard rock bands. And when you're on the spot, you can't think of it.
I'm just kind of...
Here's one that surprises. There doesn't seem to be any Helix.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be any Helix. Doesn't seem to be any Kim Mitchell.
Coney
solo.
Hatch. I think we talked about that before.
The first one.
Yeah. What about like a band like, say, Toronto?
Toronto, you can probably, I don't collect them, but you could probably get them all the way up through, Get It on Credit? Came out in...
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's always the possibility, because I know that Columbia House in Canada stopped in 84. So they went for a couple years after retail cut off.
Right.
Because I've got Rush, Grace Under Pressure. My version of that is a Canadian Columbia House.
Yeah.
I've never seen one after that. So that means that I suppose like a Kimbo logo might exist. Walking the Razor's Edge might exist. Maybe the first Honeymoon Suite.
I forgot about that.
There's all, maybe the second Coney Hatch, but I don't know. And I don't know how you'd ever... find out. And like Triumph, there's nothing past Thunder 7. The one Triumph I'm missing is Never Surrender. That's rare.
It's rare.
That's really hard to find.
Wow.
Thunder 7 is actually easier to find.
Really?
That doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's easier.
Right. Wow. Well, that's cool.
There's no Dio. No Dio, which is odd.
Black
you
Sabbath
get all the Rainbow.
You can get Black Sabbath.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Born Again is on. I know that's not Dio, but Born Again seems to be the last Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. Yeah.
Yeah, but the first three, like the Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, and then Live Evil, those all exist on retail Warner Brothers 8-tracks.
Wow. I wonder if the Gillan stuff. I would assume so.
I doubt it. I doubt it because that tended to be like UK stuff, right?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I know some of the albums came out over here, but they weren't widely distributed.
Yeah.
And in the UK, they seem to stop making 8-tracks. Like I've never seen any past the mid 70s.
That's crazy. Wow.
And I've talked to a lot of people from the UK that are like our age, and they barely remember them. They don't even remember them as well as I do, like turn of the 80s. They're like, I remember seeing Beatles once. That's about it.
I remember my dad having an 8-track player in his car. Like as a kid.
I really think that it was a North American thing. Right. And I don't know if it's because of geography, like in the UK, everything's so much closer together.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't the driving for the sake of driving. I don't know if it was.
Good point.
I don't know if it held and that's why 8-tracks were so popular, right? Because they were portable. Yeah. You could put them in your car, listen to them in your car. I think it's a different thing. I don't think that it held the same, charm.
I mean, I remember my dad having like blank 8-tracks.
Oh yeah. You could make your
record
own
on them, right?
You could record off the radio, or you could record, like if somebody of yours had an album you wanted, you could make a duplicate. But yeah, you could record off the radio just like you could cassette tapes.
Wow.
Yeah. I just thought Queensryche, there doesn't seem to be any Queensryche.
Right. Yeah. What about like say like Venom or something like that? Probably
nothing. Not. No, nothing. None of the real heavy stuff. There doesn't seem to be any Metallica either. Although, ever since I realized that Dawkins under lock and key, I always wonder in the back of my mind, I wonder if they made Master of Puppets, because they were also on Elektra. I know Dawkins not as heavy, but it's just the same label.
Yeah, same label. And it makes you wonder, like, how Anvil, for instance.
Anvil probably, I would say maybe their first two you could get Canadian 8-track stuff, because Attic put out a lot of albums on 8-track. I've never seen any. I've never seen any Lee Aaron. The only Attic 8-tracks I have are the first few Triumph, the Canadian versions.
And the Dwarfs probably would never.
No.
Stand Tall was kind of an independent almost, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was on like Maze Records.
Maze Records
So
distributed by
the first
A&M.
one was on the first one was on Attic, but
On that, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's really interesting to go through. Yes, there are some that it doesn't make sense why some bands seem to and some bands don't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Rat and Twisted Sister are the strange ones to me. If you get Rat and you get Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, you think Twisted Sister would be right in there, but
it's
don't
just funny that Out of the Cellar was their biggest, more or less, their breakthrough biggest album with Round and Round on it, right?
And it doesn't seem to exist on it. And I suppose here's the thing, it always could, but why haven't we seen one by now? Why has it taken until now why haven't we, because it's not like I haven't been actively looking around.
Yeah.
So, and even bands that are, like Night Ranger, for example.
Oh, right.
I've got
yeah.
One of my grails, and I know it exists, I just can't find it, is Dawn Patrol, their first album. Right. Yet I've got Midnight Madness and Seven Wishes, the two that came after. Those ones are actually easier to find than the first one.
See, I have a Japanese vinyl pressing of Seven Wishes that I found in mint condition in a record store.
That's cool. They have the Obi strip on it and everything?
No, and it didn't have the Obi strip, which I don't think it did. I'll have to look, but which was disappointing because it devalues it, right? Apparently.
Yeah, if it's a Japanese pressing, that's the first thing anybody asks, right?
Yeah, where's the Obi strip? So
yeah, I was trying to think of the Deep Purple family tree.
Well, I was trying to. I mean, we've got
Rainbow.
The
last one is bent out of shape.
Okay.
So I guess the only other one would have been that final vinyl in '86. That's right. Exist.
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about White Snake, and then
and we mentioned the Gillens and the Rainbow and the Dio. I mean, and Black Sabbath, of course. I mean, that kind of all those bands kind of in some way or another all go together, right?
Even Thin Lizzy. I mean,
right, Thin Lizzy.
The newest Thin Lizzy I have is Chinatown from 1980. I don't know if Renegade exists, although it's 81. It should.
I'm surprised that Thunder and Lightning isn't on.
Well, I've never heard of a Thunder and Lightning one, but apparently there's one for that live album that they put out at the end of '83. That's called Live or whatever it's called.
Oh, Life. Yeah.
No, Live and Dangerous is '78, but it's the cover
Life,
of
it's
it.
blue, right?
Life with a V. Yeah. Apparently that exists. I've never seen one. But why that would exist and the two before it wouldn't, again, it's just one of those weird things. But
that's amazing. I mean, we always seem to go back to this, and it becomes this conversation.
Well, it's fascinating, right? It makes sense, especially when you're talking about what if that was your preferred way to buy music?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got to make a decision. Do I start buying records again, or do I just go to cassettes? What do I do with all these 8-tracks? It's just really weird. And then to think of, I suppose you'd have to have been fairly well-to-do, but as of 1983, you could get CDs.
Yeah. Yeah, because the first one, which is bizarre, right? I remember seeing them in Woolco, for instance, when they first came out, but I don't think that was till 85 or 86.
I don't remember seeing them until the end of 1985, and I didn't even see them in a record store. I saw them at a video rental place.
Yeah.
They didn't even sell records or tapes, but they had a section where they must have been selling CD players, and they had a few of them hanging in the not the long boxes, but the blister packs. And I remember seeing Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits. I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing there was a Simple Minds album that they had, and I just thought I didn't understand how they worked at all.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was just I avoided it until I didn't start
until I didn't buy CDs until the end of 1990, and I
think I was around the same. I think it was 1990.
My mother got this really cheap, only if you're in Canada, we had this Pulsar brand, which was the Canadian Tire.
Yep.
And it was the weirdest. It was basically a boom box, like radio cassette, but instead of having a dual cassette, it had a CD player, but the CDs loaded vertically. It was the weirdest thing.
That's cool.
You could see them spinning when they were playing.
Yeah.
And so once we had a CD player in the house, I thought I should buy a couple CDs because I was still buying tapes and I had no intention of changing at this point. And I remember the first one I ever bought was Night Ranger's Big Life album, which I got
Great album.
I found in a dump bin for $6.99. It was still in its long box.
Wow.
And I didn't even know, like, well, what? So then I opened the end of it and this little disc falls out. And I'm like, oh, okay. As a matter of fact, something that I just got that you'll think this is cool. I got this not too long ago. And I've just got it on display because I've got the CD and there's no way I'm opening this.
Wow.
Yep. So Triumph Rock and Roll Machine in its
Where
long
did
box.
you find that?
Discogs, and it's got,
Okay.
check this out, A&A
Wow.
A&A price
How
sticker,
much-
and then it's got so A&A $16.99, and now under there's this red tag says sale $13.99, and
That's
it's still
crazy.
sealed.
Wow.
It's still in the shrink wrap, and yeah, boy, I hadn't held on to one of these in a
I know.
long time. So and it wasn't very much. I think it was like $10. I'm like, I've got to get this.
I remember I bought Enough's Enough, the first album, and it came in a long box.
I had I've still got the CDs, but I don't know what happened to my long boxes. I
Yeah, I
probably
didn't-
had
I
2 dozen
lost
long boxes. They're lost to time. I had a couple of Y&T ones. I had some Van Halen. I had Kansas and Journey, and I wish I'd have kept them.
I know. I wish I had kept that Enough's Enough one. I think I still have the CD.
Yeah,
But I don't have
see,
the
I've
long
got,
box.
but I've got. I had ones like the first 2 Baton Rouge albums.
I had one of those too. That's right. Yeah, I had the Lights Out in the Playground, the second album. I think it came in the long box. I think.
The last CD that I bought that came in a long box was Bon Jovi "Keep the Faith," and that was like fall of '92. After that, you didn't see them anymore because I remember they kind of
they faded them
stopped.
out. They probably cost too much money.
Well, they cost too much, and they were basically an environmental waste. But I don't think the cardboard was as bad as, like, Polygram used those blister packs, which were completely useless once you opened them.
I don't remember
Because all they
those.
did was so Polygram. This is Polygram and A&M. I remember they were the same length as a long box, but all they were, you could hang them like on a hanger.
Yeah.
Or, and all they did was they took the booklet out, put it in the top so you could see it, and then the CD was, and so once you opened it, there was
you're putting it together. You're putting
yes,
those things in there.
and the plastic was just simply garbage. There was no artwork on it. Sometimes later albums they'd have like a sheet of cardboard in front of it.
Yeah,
because I remember like any of the old Polygram CDs, there weren't long boxes for them.
Right.
Until around 1988, because I had the New Jersey long box.
Did you
But for
really?
example, if you bought Hysteria, there was no long box.
Right.
It was just that long piece of cardboard and then the blister pack. Adrenalize, I bought Adrenalize when it came out, and it had a long box. But that's the only one.
Like I remember when you used to go to Sam the Record Man later on, and they would have those cases that they had to put the key in so that people couldn't steal them, right? And they looked like a long box, but they were a security thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why they did it, because they needed something where they could fit the CDs into where the records were.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like you think of Sam the Record Man, when they close, it's like, what did they do with all those?
I have quite a few, probably about a half dozen records that I bought from my local Sam's at half price when they were
closed.
so I've got OU 812 and the first Winger and Permanent Vacation and a couple 38 Special, and what else? Well, a couple Sammy Hagar. I got VOA, and then I got his 87 album. I think that was it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I wish I'd have bought a lot more.
I just think of when I used to go to, like, when you'd go downtown Toronto to the Yonge Street store.
Yeah.
And
I was there once.
The displays. Like you would walk in the door and it'd be, it's like that sound going off that goes, wah, like the light comes on and there's this big sound. Like you would walk in and you'd just be amazed because even the displays.
Yeah, the display, they'd have the record, they'd have the CD in front of it, the cassette, and it was just like, oh yeah, that was such good times, man. I have the fondest of memories of those. And I just, you can't go back, but I still remember it very well. And I said many times, I even remember when you just went into your Zellers or Kmart and they had decent music.
Yeah, they did, like
sections.
And see, it's funny, like when you go down to the States, and for the longest time, you'd go to Walmart and Target, and they'd have exclusive, like, for instance, Poison's greatest hits on vinyl, Walmart exclusive. But now you go and it's just the pop music. That's all they're selling for the most part now. And it's very
that's where I got the vinyl. A buddy of mine got it for me. He got me the vinyl to Def Leppard's Mirrorball, their live album. That was a Walmart exclusive.
I have that on vinyl when it came out, but it wasn't the Walmart one. I think it was and that wasn't even on, that was on their own label.
I was on Mailboat.
Yeah, Mailboat. That's right. Yeah. That was a weird time for them, I think, because they were without label. It was so weird. Now, before I let you go, there was one more April wine question I had to ask.
Yeah.
What was available in the truck stop tapes for April wine?
We'll show you if you can hang on a second.
Sure.
I've got one.
You have one?
Hold on.
Okay.
This is one of the weirdest ones I've seen, and I've seen some weird ones. And I realize now that it's actually the same picture that's on the front cover of my book. It's just it's just mirrored.
Oh, okay.
This is called "We Like to Rock." This is a U.S. cassette.
Really? Wow, that's so cool. And it's the white cassette.
And it's the white. Now, but what's weird about this is that usually these cassettes would take from different albums.
Yeah.
This.
Is it an actual album?
There's 8 songs on here. This is the Harder, Faster album.
Oh, but they just renamed it and put a different cover.
They renamed it, and the songs are in different order.
Wow.
So if you go on Discogs and look at the master release of the Harder, Faster album, you'll see this pop up.
That's so cool.
It's all the same songs. Cool. So, but why didn't they take songs from other albums? There are other albums they could have chosen songs from. That's the only one I've ever seen that's just takes songs from one album.
I love that. That's kind of cool.
That's a total truck stop tape, though. There's no way
you can tell.
It's cheap looking, right?
I love it though. It's funny that we talk about the white tape because I just was talking to the Harry Cody and Zinny Zan from Shotgun Messiah because they have a new album out. They just after 30 years they got back together, and I was explaining to them that I initially got the tape on Columbia House. With me and my buddy shared a Columbia House because my parents wouldn't let me.
Right, yeah.
And so I was explaining to them, I said, listen, I didn't know if these albums I had ordered were going to come because I filled out out of an American magazine because none of those titles, like we had Mr. Big, Shotgun Messiah, Tora Tora, I can't remember what else, Pretty Boy Floyd. So it was all 80s stuff. So I filled it out and I'm like, I don't know if it's going to come. But sure enough, they did. But they all, and I'm not sure if I told you this before, but they did come from the States. And that Shotgun Messiah tape was it was that white. Because most of the time in Canada, we didn't get those white ones. You remember the cassette tapes in the States, my buddy used to bring and they'd usually be clear. Where ours were black. And I think if you like Shotgun, they were on what? Relativity. Yeah.
I think if you bought those retail in the States, they'd be the clear cassettes.
Right. Yeah. It's just one of those things that
I bought Steve I Passion and Warfare when it came out. I bought that in the States and it's a clear cassette.
A clear cassette. Yeah. And up here we got most of the time is the black cassette, right?
Yeah, because like the early Satriani albums are black cassettes and they were distributed by WEA up here, which is interesting.
Yeah, and apparently Relativity, which wasn't that his label too? Wasn't he on Relativity? But it was distributed different. It was in the States, it was Sony or CBS or whatever it was.
Yep.
But up here it was Wea.
Well, it eventually became Sony.
It did.
But for the first, I know the first few Satriani albums, I think until The Extremist in 92, because that's on Relativity Sony in Canada. Right. That must have been where the switchover happened. But yeah, before that it was, and I said this many times, I think the Canadian cassettes were a better quality. They looked better. Yep. Yeah. Especially if you bought like some of the early Dokken or the early Rat.
Yeah.
The US tapes just look cheap.
They look cheap because of that clear tape just looked cheap. And sometimes even the paper and the
Yep.
cases weren't as good.
I
as
like
what
the
we were
layout of the Canadian tapes a lot better until where the US got is they were the first to have the clear tapes, and I always thought those were cool. I think
thought they were.
I think the first one I ever bought of those when it came out was a OU812, and I was like, it was just the coolest looking tape I'd seen.
Well, it was funny when you'd buy an album and you'd be like, you'd open it up and get disappointed if it looked cheap.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, this looks like shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's I just thought of something. Oh, I know one thing that was like part of my musical education without realizing it is that early 88, I was just getting into Rush.
Right.
And of course, I had a lot of albums to catch up on. But I remember I bought Fly By Night in the US. It was only like $3.99, but it was on Mercury.
Oh.
Whereas in Canada, their albums were on Anthem.
Anthem, yeah.
Yeah. So
that stuff's very cool when you find those things, or like you'll get a pressing like from Europe of like for instance, Look What the Cat Dragged In is on Music
it's
for
on
Nations.
Music for Nations. Yeah.
And before my robbery, I had a copy of Look What the Cat Dragged In on Music for Nations. I haven't gotten another one since then, but it was
it's so weird, like because they were obviously still trying to track down. It made me think of something else too. Well, yeah. So another little side project that I kind of created for myself is I'm trying to find all of the Rush albums, Canadian versions, from the first album through All the World's a Stage on Mercury.
Oh.
Because they were on Mercury in Canada, just like they were in the States, until the creation of Anthem Records in around 1975.
Okay.
And then A Farewell to Kings was the first Rush album that came out in Canada just on Anthem Records. It didn't come out on Mercury, but they stayed on Mercury in the States and then in most of the world. But I'm just fascinated by that. So I'd like to find the cassettes of those first few Rush albums that are Canadian and on Mercury, because you don't see those. Usually you don't even see the early Anthem issues that much, but they do exist.
It's cool too, because sometimes those pressings one sounds better than another.
That could, that's definitely another thing.
Depending on who does it.
Thin Lizzy's another band that's interesting because sometimes you'll find their albums, if you buy them in the States, some of them are on Warner Brothers. But in Canada, they're on Mercury.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to hunt down some Thin Lizzy when I go down there. But it's so hard to find stuff in the state, like to find a record store. So I think we have more record stores in Canada than they do down there.
I think it depends. I know one place that I love to go, and I haven't been there in a while, but is Portland, Maine. I've done quite well there, finding like Vandenberg records and Tesla records, and
I love that. That's awesome. Well, Tim, thank you again, and it's always a pleasure.
Oh yeah, this is great.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
Just that my April Wine book, like all of my books, it's on Amazon. They're all on Amazon around the world. So yeah,
I was on Amazon today and looked at all of them. So
thanks for having me on again, Tyson. It's always great to have these chats. I like this. It's right into why I love collecting this stuff and listening to it and all of it.
And the next one, we'll talk about the next one when it comes out.
Working on, there's one that I've got that's done, just needs put together, and then I'm just in the beginning stages of the one after that. So.
Wow, man, you're busy. Right on. Okay. Well, enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you later, Tyson.
Take care, Tim.